Thanks again, everyone, for joining this session, and thanks again also to the organizer of ClueCon having me here and putting the effort of rebooting in-person events. Although now it's a hybrid event, it gives us hope that next year we can meet each other across the world. Today, I'm going to present about Kamailio and what it offers in terms of changing the SIP packets, no matter our request or replies. It's going to be a little bit technical content. If you are not familiar with Kamailio, be aware that tomorrow I have a short workshop to introduce a little bit its configuration file, so that could help to understand better what I'm presenting today. For those that don't know me, I prepared a short personal introduction. I'm practically living in Berlin, Germany, although I'm originally from Romania. I work in real-time communications for almost 20 years now. I'm known from the Kamailio project as being one of the co-founders of it, but also I present at and organize different events related to voice over IP real-time communication. If you want to learn more about myself, you can find me at scipto.com or via the Kamailio mailing list. It's another good channel to reach out to me. Also, here I'm having a slide about Kamailio to present it, knowing that many people join online, so they might be familiar with free switch only. Practically, Kamailio, it's a SIP signaling server, also known as a SIP proxy. We don't process media packets, so audio, video, okay, in between codes, because recently, or like 2 years ago, we got a module that can do some basic media processing. Obviously, we work together with RTP relay applications such as RTP engine or RTP proxy. I think during ClueCon will be a presentation about one of our options for RTP relaying from one of our developers as well. Well, you can use Kamailio if you are coming from telephony, and if you think from, okay, telephony is related to audio and these days more and more to video, practically everything that it's related to authorization, authentication of the users, connecting people, so figuring out where the target is located and doing this parallel forking, serial forking, gateway hunting, this is signaling only. And by that, you can do quite a lot with Kamailio, including like call bearing and so on. It's also very powerful and offers a lot of tools for this protection of your core infrastructure. So we work at the SIP packet layer. So practically you can inspect everything. And actually here with this presentation, I will show you how you can change these packets to suit better your needs. But this gives you low-level access. You can easily detect at really low resource consumption attacks or packets that are not correctly formatted, and you can either try to fix it or reject them based on what you need. It has a lot of features. So this is like 20 years of development with a lot of extensions, over 250, going on different type of markets. So the classic voice over IP, instant messaging and presence, IMS, 4G, 5G, we have extensions for this one. And we also have our own event. The last edition, obviously, they were online, but typically when will be allowed again, and when will be allowed again will be in Berlin, Germany, the Kamailio Award event. That's it. Not to lose much more time about this presentation. Again, you can find details, and I will be in the chat or on the mailing list if you want to learn more about Kamailio. So, what it's a SIP message or a SIP packet. I'm presenting here the request in details, this invite. So we have like first line where the most important part will be the request URI, commonly referred as RURI, will be this address here, invite sipbob@voip.lab. So that's the target address, more or less. And usually you want to change it for various reasons, like normalization, like adding country prefix or area prefix if it's a telephone numbers, or changing the target address like IP address to go to a gateway or to a media server and so on. Then will be the headers, and they are also very important for routing, record route headers for setting next hop addresses, contact address, then caller and callee IDs, the from to headers, along with extensions such as PIA-certified identity. So it has a lot of useful information, and you may want to change it for various reasons. Then will be the body. Here will be for an example with the SDP for an invite, like setting up an audio call. Could be larger when you have also video streams. But could be also XML if it's a presence related message, or simple text, or HTML if it's instant messaging. And you can still change these parts with Kamailio as you want. And again, we'll see how it can be done during the next slides. Then we have the SIP response or the SIP reply. I put only the first line there, which is different than for the request. So for request, starts with the method invite, request URI, the address, protocol and version. For the reply will be the protocol version first. Very important will be the status code, this 3-digit number, and then the reason text for the reply. Everything else is similar in terms of it's followed by the headers and eventually a body. So I'll show you, and hopefully text is not that small so you can see it, but I will share the presentation and I will send it also to the organizer. They can put it on their website, but we'll also post it on Kamailio website as well. First slide, it's about transforming the first line and practically the request URI, focusing on the user part. That's from the SIP specification point, like username part of the request URI. In the telephony, that will be the dial number, more or less. So if it's a number, typically you want to add a prefix like country prefix UK here +44, or you want to strip something like area code or leading code like leading 0 when dialing out. If it's like a PBX extension and you have like a main number in, typically it's common in Germany to have a main numbers and then a block of numbers following it are routed to you, and then you want to concatenate it with it. This you can do it with function like prefix or operations with pseudo variables. Pseudo variables are this and then an ID, an alphanumeric ID following it, and usually are referencing parts of the SIP message. So $R uppercase U is the user part of the request URI, and you can use plus to concatenate. Then you can use transformations for doing different operations like stripping from the beginning or from the tail of the value, like I have in this example. You can use other variables during these operations. Transformation are like functions to be applied to the value of a variable. And for example, we have this transformation to remove white spaces or certain character like the dot or the dash. So if someone dials from like a mobile app and puts these characters in between, you can easily remove them. Also, you can apply regular expression substitution. And here, maybe you're familiar with this SED expression for transforming the string values. It's also popular in Perl to have the same similar expression for transforming the text. Another attribute from the first line of the request that it's or other set of attributes will be the host part, the port, and then you can combine in HostPort, and also sometimes parameters you want to update them, to add some of them to reflect better the purpose of that code. We have, again, functions for this purpose, as well as variables that you can assign values to them. So we have set host to set this host part, could be a domain or could be an IP address. So you can put whatever you want there. IPv4, IPv6, it's supported by Kamailio, both of them. So you can use as you need in your infrastructure. Setting the port, again, set port function and $RP if you want to do this assignment. To change both of them, because sometimes you run maybe free switch on port 5080 or a different port on your infrastructure, you can set both IP and port at the same time. Setting the entire URI, it's possible by assigning to $RU, and then you have this zip alice at newdomain.com port and transport as a parameter. You can add many parameters following the zip URI format from the specification. As you can see here, you can also combine in an expression with other variables. $RZ, it's the schema like zip, zip-s, tel, whatever it was in the incoming request, user part, and then concatenation with the HostPort, new domain, and 5080, plus taking the parameters from the incoming URI. So it's full flexibility to build parts or the entire value with expression, and then do assignment to this value. I'll have, or just a quick remark to tell that in Kamailio, you always have to explicitly send out. So changing the target URI doesn't mean for Kamailio that request should be sent out automatically. So after changing the target address, the request URI, you still need to explicitly send it out stateful with trelay, so transaction stateful, or stateless with the forward function. So don't forget this one. With some application, typically at the end of running the configuration file, if the target is no longer the local system, will send out the traffic. With Kamailio, everything has to be explicitly in terms of routing SIP requests. Now we look at how you can change the first line of SIP responses, SIP replies, and practically here it's about the status code, this 3-digit number, and the reason text. If you need to do it stateless, so just change it and don't change the state of the transaction, you can use function from the text ops x, change reply status, and this you can do with 2 parameters, the code and the text, like the example here with 404 not found on the upper right corner, or sometimes you want to change only in the status code, leaving whatever reason text is there. We have the change reply status code function for it. If you are in the stateful mode, so transaction stateful mode, this is from the moment we send out the request till the moment we send the final reply to the originator of the request, we keep the state of that request routing. If it got a failure reply code like 300 or greater, we can do rerouting and other type of sending out parallel serial forking fashion. In that case, in the failure route, you can change the reply code and text, status text, to the t-reply function. So no matter what's received from the next hop, you can overwrite it, and Kamailio will generate and update the transaction state to the new values. And in our example here in the failure route calls, if it's a 604, we change it to 404 reply code from the transaction, just to see a comparison, same example, how it can be done with the 3 functions. The next part that I'm gonna touch would be about changing the headers, so the part related to the headers. And here the structure of a header is like name, colon, value, or the body of the header. And we have the basic operation like adding headers or removing headers. If you want to remove, you have the remove_HA function from the TextOps module. And it works with both type of names, like the normal names and the compact, like contact and M are the same. So you don't need to use both of them. One variant will delete no matter it is contact or M as header name in the zip packet. And then for adding headers, we have 2 variants. Insert means add the header at the beginning or in front of another header. So if the second parameter is not provided, we'll add it as the first header, like insert header field p source IP, and then it's the variable source IP, and will be the first header to be added. Or we want to add it in the front of the call ID header, existing header in the incoming request, or could be also the reply. It's working for both of them. You can add many headers at the same time. You just have to separate it by the end of the header. In zip spec, this is \r\n CRLF. You have the example with 2 headers, p source IP and p source port. The second variant is append header field, which is add at the end. So append to the list of the headers or add after a header. So the second example to append header field is to add it after the call ID, this p source IP. Obviously supporting also multiple headers separated by end of header characters. These are the basics that you can do, and you can remove headers to make the packet smaller. You can add headers to pass information to the next hop. You can also replace by removing incoming header and adding your own value for the same header. You have to be aware, and this is also very important, when we do operation over the header part and body part, the changes are not visible immediately. They are done by Kamailio before sending to the network, but if you want to see these changes in the message immediately, you have to use this MSG apply changes from the TextOps X module. Otherwise, you may be tricked into, oh, what happens? I don't see any error. I added a header. I test if it's present, but because it's not yet visible, this condition, if it's present, header field p source IP will not execute inside the true branch. After applying the changes, then doing this is present header field condition will return true, and you can have the true branch executed. So you have a link here to our FAQ giving you more details and explanation about this. So this is a specific characteristic for Kamailio, and you have to be careful and be aware of that. Back to changing headers, we have also function to remove group of headers by regular expression. So if you want to remove all the headers starting with x dash, which is quite common prefix for extension header, you can do it with remove HFRE from regular expression. You can also have the regular expression in a variable, and you can build regular expression with variables. We have a function with PV in the name. So we evaluate first the variables, then we build this regular expression and compile it and match it to remove header. So we remove by matching the header name in this case. Then we have a combination. Okay, I want to remove this group of headers, but I also want to keep some. So you can give a regular expression as an exception for what should be removed. So everything starting with x dash, but not starting with x dash keep will be removed with a variant of using variables, so a function for that. Then we have the function for keeping the mandatory headers and the list of the headers that you want. So the mandatory headers would be like CSEC, call ID, from to header, contact, so the important ones for routing, and everything else will be removed with the exception of the list you provide as a regular expression. We have more variants here. So when you want to do replacement or substitution with regular expression, we have search and then append. You want to match something and concatenate after some value. We have replace, so you can match on regular expression and then replace with another values. And you can replace over headers and body, or replace only over the headers, and replace all occurrences of the matches. So we have variants for these operations. If you want to do string-based replacement, we have variants, because somehow regular expression are a little bit more expensive from the point of view of execution. So we have this replace str and replace hdr str that work with string matching and replacement. This has a third parameter, a in our case. It's about replace all the occurrences. You can have the variant with first occurrence or last occurrence for it. For more complex substitution, we have subst and subst hf. Practically here you can provide sed like or per like substitution expression, also with back references. So you can group matches of characters and then back reference to use them in the substitution operation. So this it's a bit more powerful than the usual replace. The next group of functions coming from text ops module, it's when you want to change the value of the body for a header. So maybe adding a value if doesn't exist, like you have this supported or allow or list of methods, and yeah, I want to remove 100 rel if it's there. So maybe one of the devices doesn't support this prac and so on, and you want to remove it. Also add path as supported. So the next hop knows that it's an intermediary proxy in between the caller and it. You can also append the value. So whatever is there, we want to add something that typically doesn't exist. So the include and exclude work on it's there, then leave it like this, or remove it. This is add it at the end or add it before the values. And also you can remove of specific values. So when you have this comma separated list of values in the body, you can remove a specific one if exists, or just overwrite and assign a specific value for the header. Pretty recent, I added like an iterator for working all the headers, and then based on the position, you have variable like HF IT name, so header field, iterate item name for that iterators, and the body. And then with these two operations, you can variables, you can do any kind of operation. So you can match it with a string or with a regular expression, and then you have functions to remove the current header in the iterator, add or add before or after the header a new header with this HF iterator insert or append, and then goes through all headers. You can see the names of the headers, the values of the headers, update them as you need them, or remove them if you don't need them anymore. A slide just to let you know that for the caller ID and callee ID, it's recommended to use UAC module, because to be compliant with the RFC, you have to revert. So the value, as you update when sending out the request, the value has to be reverted when sending back the reply from Kamailio to previous hop. And you have UAC replace from and UAC replace to, with 2 parameters if you want to update the display part and you are a part of this from to headers, which again, they are typically the caller and callee ID value. So this is recommended to use instead of bare bone operations with remove header or append header, insert header, or substitution functions. Let's go over the body quickly. We have functions to set the body or remove the body. For setting it, you have to also specify the content type header, the value of that header, and then could be anything. In our example here is just text plain. Obviously, you can do like replacement and substitution operations also over the body. So you have regular expression matching and then replacement either with another string or with substitution. You can also have back references to retrieve value from the incoming body and preserve it, set it to the outgoing body. We have also functions for working with multipart body. So you have a list of bodies. One of them probably it's SDP, but could be different types there. You can filter, saying, okay, remove everything that is not application SDP as part of this body. Or you can turn, even if it's single body incoming request, you can make it multi-body and add your own body part with this function from text ops module. So set body multipart will turn it into the multi-part body type of message. Apply changes so everything is visible, and then you can add your parts with append body part or append body part hex. That's useful when you need to add some binary data, and it's not easy to give it via the config file, which is a text file. You can also remove a part, remove body part. This it's also possible from the same module. For the body, we have an iterator, also recent addition about working line by line. And then you can remove the line. You have a variable that gives the content of that line. You can match via regular expression, like in this example. Practically, we match anything that starts with a equal info colon XYZ. And then you can remove it, insert append after it, and goes through the list of all the lines in the body. Useful if you want to transform the SDP. Although for SDP, we have also a dedicated module, SDP ops, which is more suitable if you want to do this operation, like removing some headers by ID or by name, or keeping by ID or name these headers, removing a media stream like video, or filtering by transport. So you want to remove the unencrypted RTP packets, you can use SDP remove transport RTP/AVP. Then also removing by prefix could be useful as one function execution. The variant will be to go through the iterator. This is an older function iterator. As I said, it's a newer addition. And then we have transform everything. You know, you can build your entire SIP message, reply, or request that could be useful, especially for Kemi. Kemi is this framework where you can do routing logic, config file routing logic for Kamailio in Python, Lua, JavaScript, so these advanced scripting languages, not our scripting language. Or you can do it with some external API service that will, you pass to it the message, you will pass it back, and then you can use this MSG set buffer, where the value, the parameter will be the entire message from the first line to the end of the body. And then Kamailio can be used for this relaying, transport layer, retransmission, rerouting. But how you format it, what headers you put, the body you send there, you can do it in an external application or through some more powerful scripting option that we offer, like Python and Lua. Getting close to the end, another type of processing for Kamailio would be controlling what's in the generated response value. So what I presented before, it was more for what we receive and send out, no matter is request reply. But sometimes Kamailio has to generate replies by itself. Here it's about adding your headers if you want with append to reply. We have here X request IP $SI, that's again the source IP variable, and then end of the header \r/n. You can provide more headers by a single parameter or using the function many times. And then you can also set the reply body, again, with the content of the body and the content type header value. And then you can simply use the usual function for sending the replies, like SL send reply for stateless reply, or you can use T reply from TM module for if it's the case of a transaction stateful mode. I was not focusing at all on reading parts of the message. We have tons of variables. So this is only for the reference. You have access to practically everything that is in the SIP message, either by dedicated variables, or if not, you have a transformation that you can get the body of the header, and then you can subtract values by offset or by delimiters and so on. We have a lot of flexibility here, but again, this was about updating the content, not reading the content of these variables. I referenced some modules, so these are the links where we have the list of the modules. You click on the name and you see the README, the documentation of the module for more details about these functions I presented. And with that, I think I'm pretty much in time, or a little bit later, but I hope it's time for one or two questions if you have, or if not, through the chat. So thank you for watching my presentation.
All right, thanks, Daniel.